Okay, so what I want to talk about this time is astral projection and barriers. And this is kind of an explanation of some of the back end workings of Arcana. And if you'll remember from last time, the right hand side of the screen is the player view. That's what the player sees when they are performing rituals. The left hand side is the sort of editor view, and that is never seen by the player. It is a kind of invisible six-dimensional labyrinth with barriers in it which constrain the order of operations in any particular ritual. So to give an example, if I light the candle to begin a ritual, and I open up my inventory, and I drop a skull onto this drop locus, and I look at my player's shadow body, one of their astral bodies, is moving through the metaverse and moving on the positive x-axis. There are 6 axes in this metaverse, 3 in each of these projection zones, one up here at the top and the second at the bottom. The top zone is called the shadow, the bottom zone is called the umbra. And each of them have 3 axes, so the x-axis here is death and life, the y-axis is chaos and order, the z-axis is evil and good, and then coming down here to the umbra, the x-axis is ignorance and knowledge, the y-axis is pain and pleasure, and the z-axis is illusion and reality. And it's a bit of an inverted kind of heavy metal universe in that the more gnarly or scary versions of these values are actually the positive values. So positive x is death, positive x is chaos, positive y is chaos, and so on. So just to see what happens, let's move a little bit further out on the x-axis, out in the direction of death. And you notice that in the 2D view, some objects begin to fade in, and that's because they're close to the player in the metaverse. So the player is actually getting close to a scythe, and the scythe is starting to appear in view. And then you'll also notice that the player is very slowly moving back along this kind of fiery silver cord. And that's because the silver cord actually functions kind of like a bungee cord. So the game, in some sense, is sort of astral bungee-jumping, and the player is being pulled back along those lines. So the next thing that happens is that let's push really hard out on the death direction, quite far. And one of the things that happens is we hit a barrier, and you can hear that smacking sound as the player collides with this barrier. You could think of the barrier as kind of a metal block, or a sort of a shroud between the living and the dead, a metaphysical barrier of some kind. And to break through that barrier, let's put a skull on the very top of the temple here, and then you hear that. Turn the volume down. You'll hear the sound of breaking glass, and this barrier disappear. And that's because, in the words of Jim Morrison, we have broken on through to the other side. And so let's cleanse all of this kind of energy, this ritual energy, and let's try moving in another direction. Let's see, let's get our shadow body here so you can see it, watch it move. We're going to move on the chaos direction. And so, all right, we go up on the y direction, and we bounce back because we hit this wall. This big chaos star represents this barrier on the chaos axis. So again, let's punch through that barrier, build up a lot of energy, and bam, we break through that barrier. Now we're very close to the background, and we've moved into the chaos dimension. There we are. So let's cleanse that energy, and just to remind us that there are 2 meta projections of it. We come down here to this viewport. Let's find the player's other astral body, their umbra body, and there we are. Okay. And so let's see, let us move over here. We're going to go in the pleasure direction, and you'll notice that now we go down on the y-axis because pleasure is negative pain, again, kind of a heavy metal universe. And you can actually notice that on this background, it's swirling and moving around, and that's because it's actually picking up the texture from the scrying mirror, and this is all the programming that Steve Ram did with wonderful sort of swirling effects. And so the idea is that the player will never see their, the actual six-dimensional labyrinth, but they will get audio feedback to indicate that there's a barrier or broken through a barrier. They will be able to use the scrying mirror to kind of see into the metaverse and kind of get hints about where to go, and to some extent what we're going for here is a kind of an acid trip astral projection simulator in which the player is performing rituals, and ritual actions are either having effects or not having effects, and the logic of those actions, what order they have to be in, what works and what doesn't, is constrained by this six-dimensional maze that's going on behind the scene. And so that's the idea of astral projection, the idea of barriers. Next time I'm going to talk about summoning. And so thank you for listening, and talk to you next time.